Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, wherever you are. Where I am in Uganda, it is an afternoon, and that's why I am honored once again to have a great opportunity to join you on Humanist Africa TV for yet our other series with regards to fair digital finance, and where we wish to increase and lay more emphasis that maximizing the consumer voices in policy making with regards to this digital finance is very key, and it can be a driver to have fair and fast growing inclusive digital finance. So, as usual, I would like to welcome you on board, and then, further, also to thank you for finding time to join me. You'll excuse me for the little windy environment I'm in, as I'm in the field and moving in and addressing aspects of um, consumer voices in different areas. So today we are having yet a second in the series, an issue of maximizing consumer voices in digital finance policy making. If we can have a curtain riser as usual, we do a flashback. For some time now, we have been discussing issues to do with accelerating fair digital finance. To, as I've always said, that digital finance plays a major role in our life as consumers, whether you are directly using digital finance or indirectly. Those that are indirectly are either dependents, beneficiaries, friends, or kinfolks of those that are using digital finance directly. But having said that, colleagues, I always thank Humanist Africa TV colleagues who partnered with us to bring you this series that are all about building the capacity of consumers and calling to action duty bearers and calling for quality service delivery to the actors as businesses. And all this is geared towards consumers getting fair digital finance because the consumers are part of the block of digital finance. So I would like to thank our host, Kato Paul Mukasa, who is not with us, but I always thank our producer, Dennis Bongole, and all the other colleagues, wherever you are in the different countries that are hosting the Humanist TV, the Humanist Africa TV, and to all of you, our viewers who follow us and always utilize what we share with you. So, having gone through the series with regards food, going with series with regards consumer rights, looking at food safety, food fraud, going into agriculture and sustainable systems like agroecology, and going into food safety aspects, preparing for the unexpected. Even as we are discussing digital finance, we need to prepare for the unexpected, as I will be sharing with you. And we need to build our capacities so that we maximize the consumer voices. So, in this series and episodes, we have looked at what digital finance is and what it is all about, what governments need to do, what consumers need to do, what service providers need to do. But having said all that, the biggest beneficiary and the key persons or the key stakeholder who needs to play a role with regards to digital finance are consumers and consumer organizations. As consumer organizations, wherever you are, all other civil society, you have a pivot point role to play as to make sure that digital finance is inclusive and it is protecting consumers. The financial systems, ecosystems need to be strong to protect the consumers who invest in it. Consumers might be small, you spending or transacting in small dominations, but when you aggregate them and put them together, they make the digital finance a strong, big facility that transacts billions, trillions of shillings, dollars, of yens, of rupees, of pounds, of euros, whatever the currency is globally. So consumer protection is very key in the digital finance environment, where investors reap profits, but the profits must not let the consumers bleeding. And that's why we would like to maximize the consumer voice in digital finance policy making, whereby it is very essential for consumers and consumer organizations to support in bringing out the voices in the digital financial ecosystem to make sure consumer protection elements, regulations, standards are in place and are implemented. So having said all that, we will need to appreciate that digital finance has become a heart, has become blood, has become the air, has become a backbone of everything that we do. Those of you who are using digital finance, you pay for your housing, you pay for your health, you pay for your meals, you pay for your transport, you literally pay for your bills, utilities, you literally pay for everything, all services. So if it is not strong enough to protect you from vagaries, scams, and so forth, then you will lose trust and confidence in it. You lose the need to be part of the global world, the inclusivity. Whether consumers have got phones, gadgets of any sort or not, they have a way or two that they are benefiting from digital finance. If I don't have a mobile phone or a tablet or a computer, but I can get some money from a neighbor. Let's say I need something. My neighbor says, okay, I don't have the money, but I can order what you need. And within a short time, if it was food, your neighbor orders it on your behalf, and it is delivered by a motor bicycle or a bicycle, all on foot, and whoever delivers it is paid, still using digital finance, then I will have benefited. So what we are discussing today is very key and we need to maximize. I'm going to start with an example of a lady we talked about last week who voiced her predicament, her plight, when her resources were taken off her wallet or her account. And then, after speaking out for several weeks, and this is where this topic of today, Doreen kept on speaking out and saying, does this mighty bank want me to die? Why is it bringing people to intimidate me? And with many consumers speaking out, maximizing the consumer voice, within a week, as you see in the post there, she had to come back and tell the public, finally, my resources have been put back on my account. This is where transparency is very key. This is where consumers' voices of speaking out and up, and many coming in to call upon the regulators, to call upon the private sector, the businesses, to be fair. The acceleration of voices, maximizing consumer voices, calling upon the regulator, Bank of Uganda, what are you doing? The consumer is being harassed, cheated. There were results. So this is where in this program, as we'll be concluding the maximizing of consumer policies, consumer voices in digital finance, policy making is very key. You'll find in respective countries, they are financial consumer protection guidelines, regulations, but we do not know about them and we do not use them. For example, in Uganda, we have got similar at different pillars or different levels. In the Bank of Uganda, they are financial consumer protection guidelines where they require consumer sensitization to all the financial sectors that are related or supervised by Bank of Uganda. Then when you go to the microfinance regulatory authority, they are regulations for consumer protection. When you go to communication sector, they are regulations for consumer protection, and so forth and so forth. And all these regulations are there to protect us consumers, to maximize our voices, but it is only that we do not know about them. And in your respective countries, like I was discussing with Brian some time back, in the last three, I think, episodes, weeks before, where I was telling him in Kenya too, they are consumer protection frameworks in the financial sector and the communication sector. Because with digital finance, you'll find that the communication sector plays a major role because it uses the infrastructure of communication to deliver digital finances, as in mobile money, even e-banking, and many others. So it is very important also for us as consumers, even and consumer organizations, to abreast ourselves with policy making. And once we get to know it, and even if we don't know it, we can partner. And when we partner, we continue sensitizing consumers and other players, and even getting the regulators and the businesses to know that consumers play a major role. At this point, this week, I've been in northeastern Uganda, in the Karamoja region, and I would like to share some of the aspects, the voices of consumers. We were in Karamoja starting Sunday when my colleagues who do harvest consumer complaints hit the road and got into Karamoja Kotido on Sunday, and started getting consumer voices with regards to communication and digital finance issues. We were preparing to have a consumer town hall with the Communications Commission. My colleagues went to the streets of Kotido and started talking to people from Monday to Thursday when we were having a town hall, getting to know what are the issues affecting them, to bring the issues into policy making, to bring into consumer voices into regulation, to bring the consumer voices into the ecosystem of communication and finance and many other food systems, many other things. The objectives there were to get the consumer complaints and understand them, then bring them to the table where we have got the regulators, the policy makers, the competent authorities for sectors, to get feedback and recommendations. What would the consumers in that area feel like would get the best service. Then also do communication awareness to sensitize the consumers in Kotido so that they are part of the big picture, so that their voices are listened to. So after harvesting complaints from over 490 consumers in those days, telling us in their local language, telling us the reality on the ground, I would like to share some of the findings on the consumer complaints and the issues that are affecting them, the issues that are affecting the consumers in Kotido, which might be relating to you. If I would get the slide on issues with regards to data. Dennis, may you please give me that slide on data? As we were, yeah, this is what consumers' voices in Kotido were with regards to data or digital finance. The biggest challenge, and this goes back to where the communities were asking, is digital finance becoming a CASA? Digital finance, is it a CASA to society? Top most of the majority were talking of fraud, scams, the unscrupulous going in, targeting their mobile money, targeting them to scam them. That was the biggest complaint. And this talks well to policy making. Are the regulations in place at the different levels of digital finance effective? If people are talking about fraud, the majority were talking about fraud, talking about poor customer care, limited knowledge about the services they are being provided, poor infrastructure, poor customer care. But when you read all the existing regulations that come out of policy making, look at standards, look at they are in place. The scammers use phones, even the registered SIM cards that show their names. This is what the scammers use. But the consumers were asked to register their SIM cards, and the consumers are asking, but the people who are scamming us, their names are clear. Why isn't action taken against them? So this is where the consumer voices are very key in policy and effectiveness of policy implementation. So through such discussions in the family of Consumers International, where Consent is a member, we would love to maximize and continuously bring out the consumer voices so that as consumers, we get fair digital finance. So with all of those consumer complaints, fraud and transparency issues were top of the agenda, where issues that issues of not knowing the charges, issues not knowing those that are cheating, whose names and numbers are known, but no action is taken. That is what really pains the consumers. And we are going to continuously put this and put it on the report that the regulations are there, they are in place. Why aren't those defrauding consumers not acted upon? The issues of transaction problems, network challenges. When you're doing a digital transaction, and as you're doing it, a network goes off, the transaction is not completed. The consumer gets frustrated. Is this fair? Is it of quality? So in all our discussions, quality of network, quality of infrastructure, issues to do with who gives out our numbers happens. Unfair terms and unauthorized charges were other key aspects consumers were speaking out. Customer care services. You go in, you're trying to lodge a complaint. You're told, press this, press that, do this, do that. And consumers say, all of this process ends up not addressing. So I want to relate what I am telling you, and which is not leading to fair digital finance services. It's the communication aspects. The communication infrastructure plays a big role on fair digital finance, plays a big role to realization of quality, trust, inclusivity, and quick resolution with regards to transaction and also resolving conflict or complaints when they happen. But when we are in that region, the Cotido region, when we asked about the quality of communication and infrastructure in general, their biggest complaint was about quality of signal network. So all of these, if the communication network is poor, then one cannot realize fair digital finance. They might be sending money in an emergency, then the recipients will not get it. If it is about health, it is about transport, if it is about ordering for goods and services, all that is affected. So all of these coming in, they affect and bring in mistrust and loss of confidence. When you look at the ecosystem of digital finance, it has immense benefits, but consumers at times will lose confidence in it because of its poor quality. But at times they would say, but we have no alternative. So, as consumers and consumer organizations, we need to start dialoguing with the duty bearers, the businesses that are providing the services. We need to work with other civil society organization, business support organization to make sure that whatever is being delivered to consumers, who are the majority and the market of these services, that whatever is delivered to them, it is fair, of quality, it is safe, it is inclusive, it is affordable, it is available, accessible. So these are voices, those of you who are listening to us, watching us, we need to keep on urging. If you recall, when we are talking of our rights and we are talking about our responsibilities as consumers, if we are to accelerate and have fair digital financial services, we need to participate as individuals, as groups, in partnerships with other organizations. Unfair digital finance does not only affect us consumers, it also affects scrupulous businesses. The unscrupulous also affect the scrupulous businesses. So, as consumer organizations, we need to do partnerships with business support organizations to speak about the untransparent, the poor, unsafe digital finance. And we make businesses better to serve consumers with quality. Then we need to join and partner, talk to the competent authority, the central banks, the regulators, the ministries, departments, and agencies that have a role to play. And we understand how the different organizations, I'll use the example of Uganda. Whereas we are discussing digital finance, we can't leave out the Communications Commission. We can't leave out the National Infrastructure providing entity like NITA-U. We can't leave out Personal Data Protection Office. We can't leave out the Central Bank, microfinance, insurance, Financial Intelligence Authority. We can't leave out standards bodies, that the organization that sets standards. We can't leave out security agencies. We can't leave out other organizations that are providing financial services directly and indirectly. Organizations are providing social protection, or the organizations that are providing financial aid. We need to talk to all these players, and then we come up and maximize the consumer voice in the digital finance environment, the ecosystem. One of the examples that brings about solidarity in discussing and deepening the financial services, looking at the financial sector deepening, deepening Uganda, the way they bring the different stakeholders to discuss issues of financial services inclusivity widening is very key, and what is impeding it. So all these stakeholders have a role to play, and it will be very key that when we look at the ecosystem, whoever has a role needs to be brought onto the table. I always use the diagram, kind of, all of you, wherever you are, you see a bicycle, you've ever rode one, or a motorbike, but all the spokes come to one center. And I look at all the players in the digital finance to be a spoke, to come at one center and say, whom are we serving? We are serving the consumers, the market. Without consumers having trust and confidence in the digital finance sector, they are inclusive, then it cannot thrive and grow. But for it to thrive and grow and consumers to have confidence in it, they are going to need their voices to be listened to. They are going to need the different policies, regulations, laws, the different institutions to have a listening ear, to have a platform where consumers can raise the issues affecting them. Then thereafter, once they raise those issues, they are addressed. Whether they are in urban area, whether they are in peri-urban or rural area. They had to reach areas. The unbanked areas greatly need digital finance to improve their access to goods and services, to facilitate the way they do business. So the issues we are discussing today, all I am sharing and discussing with you, are very key, and they are key to drive both household, community, to develop regional, domestic, continental, and global economies. With good infrastructure, with good services, wherever needs services, goods, whether they are within our community or in the global community, they will be able to access because there is transparency. They are policies that protect them. But to date, you'll find that consumers buy goods online. And once the goods come in and they are not of the prescribed requirements as they saw online, they end up getting no redress when they are not good. They lose trust in the system. So it is very important that those who buy goods online and those who buy them physically without going online have got the same protection. There should be regulations. I know they are there, but some other people don't have the opportunity to benefit from those regulations, like aspects to do with recalls, aspects to do with a refund or replacement. All these small elements end up being big elements, because if 5 billion of the global population all started using digital finance, that means that the global economy, starting from household from each country, will thrive, will be scaled up, because 5 billion consumers will be using the digital infrastructure. Once they lose trust in it, even if it is 500 million, it will no longer be 5 billion, it will be 4.5 billion. The 500 million who are disengruntled might end up influencing another 200. So 700 will go off. But just imagine 500 million consumers are very happy, they are contented because of the fair, quality, safe digital finance with clear infrastructure, consumer protection laws, where there are redress mechanisms, where it is transparent, where they are well protected. 500 million consumers speak to two other consumers about the success, the benefits, the convenience, the saved time using a good app, a safe app, where there is no hacking, where there is no fraud, where the systems are addressing the unscrupulous. Then we'll end up with 1.5 telling the other the beauty of digital finance. Satisfied consumers telling some other 4 consumers. We go have a ripple effect, a multiplier effect that is going to promote the digital finance. All this, as we are maximizing the consumer voice, goes back to consumer protection, consumer rights, consumer protection element, empowering consumers to speak up, to assert their rights, the right to basic need. Digital finance is no longer a luxury. It is a basic need that enables us access other basic needs: food, health, clothing, education, housing. How many of you are paying for your home rent? How many are buying houses online and you do transaction while you are in your new house using paying on your computer? You pay for your mortgage. So digital finance is no longer a privilege, but it is a basic need for a consumer as a right. It has to be safe. Are not affected. Like I always say, if it is not safe in regards to digital finance, it is not digital finance. So safety is very key. Information. We have to have information as consumers, so that, as our third right, so that we make informed choices. As a basic need, it has to be safe. You must have information as consumers to make the right choices, informed choices. And in case you have all that information and you have made a choice, you recall the other time we talked about when the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority brought in the fake, all the illegal online apps that that are there attracting consumers to them that are not registered. So that information enables you make the right choice. But in case you've taken a right choice and you have chosen from the registered services and they do something wrong to you, it is your right to get a redress because the information was on the platform, you made the right choice because that particular service provider is registered. But when things go wrong, you get redress. You speak up. And when you speak up, you get redress through the regulator. Like we looked at Doreen's case. She spoke up after some time. She had to get redress when even other consumers' voices joined her plight, speaking out. Then they had to address that. That is another consumer right. Our other consumer right, in case all that is going on, like consumer organizations and other civil society organizations do, your right to representation, where consumer voices will be maximized through consumer representations, consumer organizations, civil society organizations. Speak up and out, then aspects go in. Your other consumer right is you have the right to education. Like we are doing now, we are maximizing the consumer voice, but at the same time, we are doing awareness and sensitization and even motivating you that do not keep quiet when you are affected in the market. That's a consumer right. You have a right to consumer education. But lastly, as a consumer, I need to live in a healthy environment. Not only the environment with regards to air, with regards to water, clean land, but a healthy digital finance environment. You have the right to a healthy environment with regards to the actual environment, water, services issues, digital finance part of it, a healthy communication environment, a healthy transport environment. So that is another key aspect. So our 8 consumer rights are also well enshrined with regards to digital finance, as in a healthy environment too. Privacy is a very key aspect. This is where data protection and privacy is key. In your respective countries, like here in Uganda, we have got the Personal Data Protection Office under NITAU. That's where it is housed. Like I was telling you earlier, when we were in earlier episodes, like we were collecting voices in Kotido, listening to the Ugandan citizens in Kotido. We do that following our registration with the Personal Data Protection Office. We are collecting consumer data. How we process it, we store it, disseminate it. That is all part of the healthy consumer environment. You have the right to a healthy environment. Your privacy and data protection is very key. Like Brian was telling me the other time, that the money lenders who lend digitally go into the phone books of those that they lend and start calling those that are in the phone books that Henry Chimera borrowed from us, but he's not paying. And you are a guarantor. Just imagine somebody who doesn't know that I borrowed from somebody and now somebody defaults and then I'm being called upon by somebody else whom I don't even know about, telling me Chimera defaulted and you are a guarantor, so you have to pay. That is abuse of the healthy environment of you, the consumer. It is also about safety of your data. So it is your right as a consumer, like I've always said, your consumer rights are key. Like I've led you through, safety of your data and privacy is key. And once it is abused, you need to speak up. You need, where you can't go, you need to seek representation. So, having said all that with regards to your consumer right, relating it to digital finance and where we wish to maximize the consumer voice, this is a very other important segment I'm going to. This segment is about your responsibilities. But as we go into, because our responsibilities would lead us to going into the duty bearers, as in the executive, looking at ministries, departments, and agencies. We will need to look at the legislature. If we see digital finance aspects are affecting us and we are not being listened to by the executive, the judiciary, we also need to go to the legislature. We need to talk to the regulators so that institutions that are supposed to protect us, if they are weak, then we need to talk to the executive. Can we have fully fledged organizations to protect us, promote consumer protection, protect us from the unscrupulous, protect us from the poor quality, unsafe, non-inclusive digital finance ecosystem? So, as consumers, when consumers and consumer organizations, we need to work with all the others in those different sectors. Tell the executive, tell the legislature, tell the regulators, tell the judiciary, because our voices will inform all the above, because they are in policy making. Policy making as in legal, regulatory frameworks. When we bring out the consumer voices, they will see the gaps. Like the data we collect, we push it to we push it to the competent authorities and see where the laws, implementation of the laws is weak, and then we beef up. So this is very key in that I would like to tell once again, remind us of our consumer responsibilities. Which responsibilities will enable us engage the ministries, departments, agencies, the legislature as in parliament, the judiciary as bringing in laws, going in for redress, the regulatory agencies, which are competent authorities, like in digital, it might be the central bank, it might be the microfinance institutions, can be insurance, it can be the capital markets, it can be other different players, plus also the bankers associations, the the mobile money associations or businesses, the money lenders businesses or associations, the regulators. So as consumers in this environment, to maximize our voices, we must be critically aware as our responsibility number one, because it is your right to basic needs. Digital finance is proving is a basic need. It has to be safe. You need information to make the right choice. And in case you have made a choice and things are not working out, you need to have redress. If it isn't working out, you need representation. You need awareness and a healthy environment. But you have to be critical for all the above. So you must be responsible. When things are not good, you have to take action, like Doreen did, the example I've shown you, and many others who have spoken up when they are being affected. You have to take action. You have to have social concern. If you are a knowledgeable consumer, you are a consumer organization, you are a civil society organization, you are a duty bearer, you are a business, you need to have social concern of others, the vulnerable consumers who are affected. You need to have who are disadvantaged, who are powerless. Like Dolin said, does a mighty bank need to get people to continuously even hurt me more when I'm at a loss? This is where social concern comes in. You're making billions of consumers have social concern to give them quality, to listen to their views, to listen to them when they are affected. So as consumers, we must be responsible and make sure that we have social concern. I've talked about the environment. We need to be aware. And if we see that the environment we are operating in is toxic, just imagine fraud is digital finance toxic. So we need to have an awareness about the environment from which we are operating in. So if the environment is toxic, the regulations are in place, but they are not implemented, that environment is toxic. If the unscrupulous are cheating us without any help, that environment is toxic. So we need to get together in solidarity as our last responsibility, consumers, to speak out on issues of the toxic environment of digital finance and of communication, of all other services, goods and services. So the consumer responsibility is very key. So when people listen to Doreen, and even some of them were victims, they came in solidarity on the social media to speak out of their experiences. These consumer voices ended up getting regulators, getting the business to respond and deal with the consumer problem. So, colleagues, all this shows that as consumers, as consumer organizations, civil society organizations, financial sector businesses, duty bearers, as in the executive, ministries and departments and agencies, we can get together and have a healthy, resilient, thriving digital finance sector where the policies that are put in place, the regulations, standards, institutions to implement them are fully fledged. They have got a consumer, they are consumer centric, they are responsive, and they address consumer issues. Once the consumer issues that are coming in show that there is a weakness in a policy, legal regulatory framework, it is addressed at that policy level. Then the businesses come in and implement the regulations, implement the policies, implement consumer complaints mechanisms. Then the businesses thrive. Consumers will gain trust and confidence in them. They are inclusive. They provide effective consumer protection. There will be a ripple effect, a multiplier effect, consumers accessing, and both consumers get quality service, and then the businesses get sustainable businesses with consumers accessing service, getting value for money. Then there will be customer experience that will nourish the growth of the digital financial sector. Then to us, the consumers and consumer organizations, other civil society organizations, we need to embrace ourselves to get to understand the policy framework, to get to understand the mechanisms in the private sector, to come down to empower consumers to empower themselves, to get to know and speak out on behalf of consumers and consumers themselves speaking out to the regulations, to call action where things are not working out well. Then where we need to work in solidarity, partnerships. The way we are moving forward, not knowing that digital finance is parts and parcel of our everyday single minute. All the branches that have a building block on digital finance will need to partner so that we fight any vagary that is there to impede the growth of the digital finance as a major valuable in humanity. Where if the consumers report to, let's say, to consumer organization as a civil society organization with that coordination beat, then the civil society organization, consumer organizations report or empower consumers to report to the private sector. Then the private sector, with the systems in place, make sure that they address the consumer concerns. Once they get, and the private sector gets to know the unscrupulous that are leading to the abuse of the service, work together with the duty bearers, competent authorities, using the regulations in place to do consumer protection. Once all these are put together, domestically as in country, the digital sector will thrive. It will grow. It will be resilient. It will be fair, with consumer voices as the fuel, because the consumer voices would light the light that would lead the way to successful scaling up of digital finance, to successful inclusion, uptake, usage, to get the unbanked or the unparticipating population to start participating. That done, the shareholders of the companies, even consumers are shareholders of companies that offer digital finance, there will be enough profit to get dividend. But the business has to be fair. It has to be transparent. It has to be scrupulous. It doesn't need to cheat consumers. So the private sector grows. The duty bearers will be able to receive the revenue they need. The revenue will be coming in from consumers to the private sector. The private sector pays the required revenues. The revenues that are paid with responsible governments will get good services. So that will be a good circular or circularity where we have minimum waste, maximum benefits, and have a thriving sector that is not only benefiting government when it is getting revenue, which revenues are used responsibly, and the government with good governance accounts to the consumer that the revenue we received when you accessed and bought services, the private sector paid taxes, and we received the taxes. We have improved the quality infrastructure with regards to digital finance, with regards healthy sector, with regards agricultural services, with regards everything, because the consumer bought the product. Of that product, there were taxes. Taxes were paid. Then whoever received the taxes used them judiciously to improve service delivery. So this will end up having the ideal world. Unfortunately, what is ideal at times is not ideal. And this is where we'll need more awareness. We'll need more partnerships, collaborations, coordinations, where the authorities do not need to work in isolation. I've really enjoyed the town halls where we are partners when we are talking to consumers in these town halls. And this is why I commend the partnership. The Uganda Communications Commission brings in other players. Let me just conclude by giving this example where I see the healthy partnerships of the different players. The National Identification Regulatory Authority, not regulatory, Registration Authority, NIRA, plays a major role. I'm sorry if I might not have explained it well, but NIRA Uganda plays a major role. You need to have a national ID to register your SIM card. When you register your SIM card, you get a communication piece where you put the SIM card in your phone. The SIM card, once it is offered to you by a telecom company, you are able to go on to the communication infrastructure, which is managed by the Communications Commission. Then there is another player, NITAU, who has a role with regards to the infrastructure, the backbone infrastructure of the country with regards to information and technology. Then there is another player, the Personal Data Protection Office. Then there is another player who has a role as in microfinance, the different, there's a Bank of Uganda. All the financial sectors didn't come in, but the NITAU came in, NIRA came in, the Personal Data Protection Office came in, and then the Communications Commission, all in one house. Even the banks were coming in to listen in to the consumer voices. And when issues were raised, I remember the the Personal Data Protection Office had to tell people how to protect their data and also how to protect their personal identification numbers, the PINs.